A big sigh of relief for guys like Drake London, T. Higgins, Christian Kirk, Rashad White, but not so much for these guys. They did not come through in week 2, and some of them haven't come through yet this season. Let's talk about it, figure out should you or should you not be panicking on them, and maybe what you should do with them. And we got to start with that Thursday night game, Minnesota versus Philadelphia. Warned you not to start Alexander Mattison this week. He's looking like just a guy right now. Saved himself with a touchdown in week 1. Couldn't do it in week 2. But look, he gets the Chargers this week. If he doesn't perform against the Chargers this week, then it's time to panic. But we're not quite there yet. Just more like kind of worried right now. On the Philly side, A.J. Brown was overshadowed by Devonta Smith for the second straight week, but I am not worried here. He had a touchdown called back on a Rashad Penny hold. He had another potential touchdown where the guy tackled him. The DB tackled him before he could even catch the ball. Should have been a DPI. Better days will be ahead for A.J. Brown. He's not always going to be behind Devonta Smith. He's still a stud wide receiver. Please, don't panic and do something irrational with A.J. Brown. As for Dallas Goedert, this is a little different. What is going on here? This guy is just a low ADOT player now. Everything just dinking and dunking for Dallas Goedert. On the plus side, he had 6 catches. On the downside, only 22 yards. I mean, I guess that's okay in like a PPR league, but this isn't what you drafted Dallas Goedert for. I do think better days will be ahead. I do not like the usage I'm seeing right now. I don't like the way he's being used. And maybe Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown being there is going to hurt Dallas Goedert this year. I'm going to say a little panic on Dallas Goedert right now. Then on Sunday, we had Indianapolis versus Houston. C.J. Stroud continues to impress, throwing the ball all over the field. His wide receivers were great in this game, but you know who wasn't great in this game? Dameon Pierce for the second straight week. Only averaged 2.1 yards per carry, only 2 yards per catch. Kind of got game scripted out again. Not feeling very good about Dameon Pierce at the moment. This offensive line is decimated. A week 3 matchup against the Jaguars could help, or we could be in full-fledged panic mode this time next week. Panic level has to be pretty high on Dameon Pierce at the moment, regardless. On the Colts side, it was pretty good for everybody. Anthony Richardson did leave the game early with a concussion, but before that, he had 35 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, so he still helped you in your fantasy leagues. Not panicking here. Hopefully, he only misses a week or less. On to Jacksonville at KC, which was supposed to be the game of the week and turned out to be one of the biggest duds. Just no offense in this game. Terrible for fantasy purposes. Sky Moore had a touchdown, though, and so did Travis Kelce, so that was a plus. Kadarius Toney still doing Kadarius Toney things, which is nothing. Should not be rostered right now. On the other side, Trevor Lawrence looked really bad in this game, missing some throws. Christian Kirk, on the other hand, bounced back like I thought he might, because this is what he does, at the expense of Calvin Ridley, though. But look, don't worry about Calvin Ridley. He's a great player. He had 2 end zone targets, almost had a touchdown. He's going to be fine. Just, you don't need to comment on our start sit video that he should be an auto start just because he has one good week 1 game. Let's pump the brakes a little bit, but Ridley will be fine. The run game wasn't much better for the Jaguars either. Etienne only 40 yards on 12 carries, but look, he's a good player. It's going to be better. This is just one of those games. Both sides of the ball really struggled. Better days are ahead for Etienne. Please, don't panic on Etienne. Then we had Chicago versus Tampa Bay. If you started one of the Bucs players, you're probably feeling pretty good right now. On the other hand, with the Bears, Justin Fields, he put up a decent fantasy game, ran for a touchdown, threw for about 200 yards, but only 3 carries in this game. Now through 2 games, only 9 attempts for 59 yards. This is not what we want to see from Justin Fields, because this isn't a guy who can just stand in the pocket and throw for 300, 350 yards and multiple touchdowns. We need that rushing upside. We need this Bears coaching staff to do what they did last year and say, fine, let's let him loose. Let's let him do his thing. Will it be in week 3? I don't know, but you got to be a little bit worried about Justin Fields right now. On to the Chargers in Tennessee, and the Chargers just somehow find ways to lose. How are the Chargers 0-2 right now? I have no idea. If you started Joshua Kelly, I'm sorry. We tried to warn you, but you're not panicking on Joshua Kelly. You're not relying on Joshua Kelly to carry you every week. Hopefully we get Austin Eckler back next week. And then DeAndre Hopkins, after having 13 targets in week 1, only 5 targets in this game. But look, he was dealing with an ankle injury. I bet he was less than 100%. Better days will be ahead for DeAndre Hopkins. He'll be fine. Don't panic if you got D-Hop. I think we see more week 1 games than week 2 games. Seattle versus Detroit ended up being one of the best games of the week. Geno Smith got off to a very bad start, came through in the end, and Kenneth Walker did save his day with 2 touchdowns, but didn't look very good in the process. As for Jahmyr Gibbs on the other side, he did see a bit of an uptick in touches, but he was actually less efficient this week. And even when David Montgomery left with an injury, he didn't see a significant bump. We'll see what happens going forward with that Montgomery injury, but he's a rookie. It's week 2. Please don't panic on Jahmyr Gibbs yet. And then as for Jared Goff, finally threw an interception, almost got the record, but didn't quite get there. But it didn't affect his pass catchers, as Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, and Sam Laporta all had nice days, as did Jared Goff. Baltimore versus Cincinnati saw the bounce back of one quarterback that got paid this offseason. Lamar Jackson with a nice game. Mark Andrews found the end zone. Zay Flowers also had a nice game. On the other side, Joe Burrow did not bounce back. Sure, it's easy to look. He had 2 touchdowns. He was decent this week. But if you watch that game, he looked really bad for most of the game. Now, I mentioned T. Higgins in the beginning. He had 2 touchdowns, big-time bounce back. That's why you got to start him. But what's going on with Jamar Chase? This is 2 very bad games in a row. Joe Burrow doesn't look right. Said he aggravated his calf at the end of the game. But, I mean, come on. We're not really panicking on Jamar Chase already, are we? Raiders went to Buffalo, and as expected, this was a big bounce-back week for pretty much all the Bills' offensive players. The Raiders, not so much. Josh Jacobs, 9 carries, negative 2 yards. That is really hard to do. He's got another brutal matchup coming up this week against the Steelers' run defense, but then after that, he gets a nice matchup against the Chargers. I'm not ready to start panicking on Josh Jacobs yet. I know it's been a bad start to the season. It might not get better next week, but if he doesn't come through in week 4 against the Chargers, yeah, we're going to be in full-fledged panic mode at that point. And if you're somehow still a Hunter Renfrow truther, you can let that go now. Even with Jacoby Myers out and Devontae Adams missing a portion of this game, 1 target? Yeah, the Hunter Renfrow time is way, way over. He shouldn't even be rostered in deep leagues. Moving on to Green Bay versus Atlanta, and don't look now, the Falcons are somehow 2-0. How did we get here? Bijan Robinson looking like a stud. Tyler Algier, not so much in this game. But that's what you're going to get with Algier, and I'm really starting to worry that we're going to see the Bijan takeover maybe already in week 3. It might have already happened in week 2. Tyler Algier, going to be a tough start going forward. And Drake London is back. 6 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets. But has anybody seen Kyle Pitts yet? Because he's still missing in fantasy. Not only is he missing, he got outproduced by Jonnu Smith on his own team at tight end. This is extremely worrisome from Kyle Pitts. Maybe he's still working back from that knee injury, but the panic level has to be high here. We just saw this last year from Kyle Pitts. I think if you got Kyle Pitts, don't drop him like people did with Drake London last week. But I think for right now, you need to bench him. On the Green Bay side, Jordan Love, another game with 3 touchdowns. Hopefully you streamed him, but hopefully you did not stream A.J. Dillon. This should have been a smash spot against the Falcons, but this guy looks like a barely average real-life running back. Just couldn't get anything going against his defense. 15 carries, 55 yards against the Falcons. I mean, even if Aaron Jones gets hurt, are you going to be excited if you have A.J. Dillon? Probably not. Panic level, way high here. Then we got San Francisco versus LA. Puka continued to dominate the targets. Granted, they're all short targets and he's not racking up a lot of yards, but in your PPR leagues, does it matter? He looks like a borderline must start until Cooper Kupp comes back. But of course, he's doing this at the expense of Tyler Higbee, who once again did nothing and doesn't need to be on teams right now. It doesn't look like Tyler Higbee is going to get that Cooper Kupp bump. You can drop him for a better tight end. And Kyron Williams has taken over this backfield at the expense of Cam Akers, who not only wasn't very good last week, wasn't even in uniform today. That's right, Cam Akers wasn't even active, even though he's healthy. This is just nothing but terrible for Cam Akers. They're saying they're going to try to trade him, but who are they really going to trade Cam Akers to? What team is looking for Cam Akers? Cam Akers at the moment in shallower leagues, maybe even 12-team leagues, maybe even deeper leagues, does not need to be rostered. As expected against the zone defense of the Rams, Ayuk took a backseat to Debo, but don't panic on Ayuk, he'll be fine. And George Kittle has now taken a backseat in both games to each of these receivers, but I'm also not panicking on George Kittle. This is just what you're going to get with this offense. Some weeks it'll be Debo, some weeks it'll be Ayuk, some weeks it'll be Kittle. You got to just keep starting them. Jets took on the Cowboys, and Brees could not build on that kind of surprising week 1, only 9 yards on 4 carries, also had 0 catches. But look, you didn't draft Brees Hall for the early weeks of your season, I hope. He's a guy that you're going to hope gets better as the year goes on, so don't panic on him, just hold him. And then, hey, congrats if you started Garrett Wilson. He saved his day by running 60 yards after a little catch to score a touchdown. But outside of that, he had 1 catch for 15 yards. Look, be thankful. You got a 68-yard touchdown that he may never score the rest of the season like that. Use this opportunity and sell Garrett Wilson, please. This situation is awful for Garrett Wilson right now. Cowboys mostly had a good day on offense. Pollard wasn't at his best against his Jets defense, but he still caught 7 passes and had a 2-point conversion. He's going to be fine. Then the Giants versus Arizona. For a while there, it looked like Arizona was going to upset the Giants. A great, crazy second half comeback led by Daniel Jones, who ended up with a really nice game. But the worry here for the Giants is Saquon Barkley. Not that he looked bad, he looked fantastic. But he came up with an ankle injury at the end, slammed his helmet, was not walking very well. Got to worry about a high ankle sprain here, which would be a 4 to 6 week absence. So at the moment, you got to be a little worried about Saquon Barkley, unfortunately. And then the Cardinals offense pretty much exceeded expectations. So, I mean, if you had the guts to start any of these Cardinals, I mean, congrats. You probably were okay with it. And then finally, Washington versus Denver, one of the best games of the day, back and forth, a lot of lead changes, a lot of crazy plays. The Commanders' offense bounced back in a big way. Sam Howell looked better. Brian Robinson looked fantastic. Terry McLaurin even with a nice touchdown catch. Really, nothing to talk about here on that side. On the Denver side, however, Courtland Sutton kind of saved his day in garbage time. 5 catches for 67 yards. Jerry Jeudy, 3 catches for 20 yards. You can't feel great about these guys at the moment in this offense. I guess you got to be panicked about him. I mean, I don't know what you were really expecting from these guys. I know a lot of people expected a lot from Jerry Jeudy where he was being drafted, but with this offense, what is the upside really here for these guys? But hey, how about Marvin Mims?